Pleased to nominate Ms. Patricia Ann Metzger for reappointment to the Appellate Tax Board. Should the council confer its advice and consent, the nominee's term will commence immediately and expire on February 28th, 2031. Sincerely, Maura T. Healy. Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce you to the counselors who are with us. We have Counselor Eunice Ziegler, Counselor Terrence Kennedy, Counselor Paul DiPaolo, Counselor Tara Jacobs. I'm Counselor Mara Dolan. I'm your governor's counselor. And would you like to introduce the folks who are joining us today?
Yes. I'd like to introduce my husband of almost 45, a little more than 45 years, Carl Horman, the chairman of the Appellate Tax Board, Mark DeFrancisco.
You asked me how my abatement's doing?
And two of my colleagues from the Appellate Tax Board, Ann Christoph, who is an attorney with the office, and Bill Doherty, who is our chief clerk.
Thank you for joining us. And I understand your witness is Mark DeFrancisco?
Yes, he was going to make a few remarks.
Very good. If you'd like to join us.
Morning, counselors, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of my colleague, Patricia Metzger. It's been my pleasure to work with her and get to know her very well over the last 6 years. I will say I knew her by reputation before she joined the board. She owns a well-deserved reputation as one of the foremost state and local and federal tax experts in the Commonwealth. I had the pleasure of serving with her on a continuing legal education panel and got to know her a little bit through that. But it was really when she joined us, I got to know her very well. First, when I was general counsel to the board, and then when I was made a member and colleague, and then 3.5 years ago as chair of the board. I could say a lot about her. I'd like to focus briefly on 3 characteristics of Pat that I think make her an outstanding Appellate Tax Board member. First, her substantive tax knowledge, both federal and state and local, her unparalleled work ethic, and finally, and perhaps most importantly, her judicial temperament. In terms of her substantive tax knowledge, again, it goes without saying that Pat has been in the tax field for decades. She was a trailblazer in private practice, being the first woman to be named partner in 2 major Boston law firms, Mintz Levin and Goulston and Storrs. She also worked for the U.S. Treasury Department, writing and reviewing tax regulations for the Internal Revenue Service. And it's rare that we have the opportunity to have someone with that breadth of tax knowledge at the board, and she's certainly an asset to the board. Her mind is incredibly sharp. She's fascinated by even what most of us think of mundane tax issues. She loves to get into the statutes, get into the record, get into the theories of cases, both from complicated corporate excise cases right down to single family house cases. Incredible asset. Secondly, her work ethic. I've never been around anyone that is as devoted to work as Pat is. It's not unusual at all to get Saturday emails from Pat and evenings. She's tireless. She's in the office daily, working at her craft. And she's an inspiration really to folks like Ann Ristoff on our legal department and the other board members. And she certainly keeps the board members on their toes. She reviews her own records and cases as well as the records of cases heard by her colleagues to be sure that we're coming up with the right decision on cases. And finally, I'll just mention it's very important at the Appellate Tax Board for our members to have good judicial temperament. We get cases that we have high power legal experts. We go from those cases to, again, single family residence cases where taxpayers are representing themselves. Pat gives everyone the opportunity to speak their mind, have their day in court, allows them to present their case without giving any indication that she favors one side or the other. It's very important at the board for us to do that, because it really is the first opportunity that taxpayers have to have an independent review of their taxes. They've already been through the administrative process. They've been assessed a tax they don't agree with. They've been turned down by their taxing authority. And the appellate tax board is the first opportunity they have to have an independent review. And Pat does just an outstanding job of allowing people to say their piece and to come up with just decisions. So for all of those reasons, I commend the governor on making this reappointment. Pat certainly deserves another term at the board, and she's an asset to the board and to the Commonwealth. So thank you very much for your time. Yes,
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're doing a great job there.
I
You
appreciate
seem
it.
to be going really well.
It's going very well.
Years ago, when I first started, sometimes you hear things and there'd be some bumps in the road. But the last probably 10 years, things have been going pretty smoothly up there. You did a great job.
I appreciate that, Council Kennedy. We do our best, and we pride ourselves on having a good reputation. Thank you, sir.
anyone else? Any other counselors?
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone in opposition to the nominee?
There was a line of security.
Chairs.
Okay, then, Patricia.
Good morning. It's a privilege for me to be here today to have the opportunity to speak with you regarding my nomination for reappointment as a member of the Massachusetts Appellate Tax Board. I want to thank Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for having the confidence to nominate me for reappointment. And I also want to thank all of you, particularly Councilor Dolan, who had taken the time to speak or meet with me. I introduced my husband. I'm proud to have him here today, along with Mark DeFrancisco, who is the chairman or chair of the Appellate Tax Board. I look forward to my continuing to serve the Commonwealth as a member of the Appellate Tax Board. Today takes me back to my early years as a lawyer, when I had the privilege of serving as Associate Tax Legislative Counsel with the United States Treasury Department in Washington. My serving as a member of the Appellate Tax Board has given me the opportunity to repeat my rewarding years of early government service. Today also brings to mind my grandmother, who was the first woman doctor in Burlington County, New Jersey, and who continued practicing medicine during World War II at a time when the community's other doctors, including my dad, were serving in the armed forces overseas. I grew up in New Jersey after my dad returned from the Army. I attended a Quaker day school for 12 years, where I learned the importance of listening to and understanding the views of other people. Before coming to Massachusetts to begin my legal career, I attended the University of Pennsylvania, what was then the College for Women, and its law school. I was attracted to Boston right away when I flew up for a job interview with a Boston law firm. I have remained a resident of Cambridge since moving to Cambridge after law school. I fell in love with tax law in law school. I enrolled intending to become a Foreign Service officer. And I thought that would be a good background. But I graduated knowing I wanted to devote my legal career to tax law. Over the years, my tax practice has been diverse, with experience in state as well as federal income, business, and estate income taxation, and outside of the area of income taxation in state property and sales taxation. All have served me well as a member of the Appellate Tax Board. Taxpayers come before the board with matters that are critical to them in their everyday life. Many are concerned about the valuation of their home for property tax purposes. Others bring to the board myriad of issues relating to taxes administered by the Commissioner of Revenue, not just personal income taxes, but also, for example, sales taxes, motor vehicle excise taxes, and employment taxes. I want to thank you for your attention to my nomination for a reappointment as a member of the Appellate Tax Board for another 6-year term. It is an honor for me to be considered for reappointment, and I'm hopeful that you will act favorably on the governor's nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll begin with questions from Governor's Counselor Chris Iannella.
Thank you very much. Morning, how are you?
Good morning.
So, how many members of the, on the Appellate Tax Board?
We have 5 commissioners.
5 commissioners. And when you hear a case, is it all 5 commissioners handle the case, or how does that work?
We have 1 commissioner assigned to hearing the case, which is the hearing officer. The hearing officer makes recommendations. After hearing the case, we all consult on it. Some of the cases are what is known as single member decisions. So they're smaller cases and they come in under a different program. But the larger cases are all decided by all of the commissioners.
Yeah, when you say smaller case, so in other words, you handle, say if someone has a single family home in Dorchester and they're assessed for, I don't know, 1.1 million, and they think it's too high.
Mhm.
So, again, I don't do any of these tax types of cases, so they file for an abatement, is that the right thing?
Yes.
So they file for the abatement, and where do they file that, with the city or with you folks?
The process starts with the city. So they'll get their tax bill. If they're, and the tax bill will tell them how much their property has been assessed. And this comes out every year. If they're not happy with the assessment, they have certain time period within which they go to the assessor's office and appeal and say, we think this is too high.
And let me just interrupt it, when they do that appeal, do they have a hearing or it's they just?
They go to the assessors. The assessors handled it whichever way the local cities and towns handle their assessment. So it can vary by city and town. So if they're not happy with the result, they get a no, and the assessors say, we think our value is correct. Then they can file with us, with the Appellate Tax Board, and they file a petition, either under formal or informal procedures. Informal procedures are exactly what that means. You don't have the same formality of hearings. And there are no appeal rights. The formal procedures, you have appeal rights. In your example of $1 million, you can go in, either formal or informal, but since it's over $1 million, the entire board would hear the case.
Okay, so now we have a case, my hypothetical, I live in Dorchester, I have a single family home and it's assessed for 1.1 million. The year before it was assessed for, I'm making this up, I don't.
That's fine.
Right. The year before it was assessed for 990,000. So it's gone up. To me, that's a big jump. Okay, because my wife's a school teacher and I'm working as a, I don't know, whatever. But we don't have a lot of money. So to us, that's a huge jump. Maybe to you, they're handling these big commercial properties. They were assessed for, 20 million and now it's 24. That's a lot of money. But in my hypothetical, that's a big hit for us.
Well, for them, it's a big hit, and for us, we treat it as a big hit. We understand that this is a very personal matter. Homeowners are very concerned about their assessments and their taxes. And when they feel that their assessment has gone up, they want someone to listen to them, take in all the evidence. The issue before the board is what is the fair cash value of the property, which we reviewed that question, but we take in all the evidence and listen to all sides.
Okay. So, my wife and I are talking about, we can't afford the lawyer. Those lawyers are, they're very expensive. We're gonna have to do it ourselves. So, I mean, do they have to get, or will the city have an expert? Or who will the city have on this side?
So they can come, you and your wife can come to us and say, we don't have a lawyer, we'll schedule the hearing, you will testify on your own behalf, what's called pro se. We are very cognizant of the pro se lawyers need to understand the process. So at the very beginning of the hearing, we explain what the process is, how they proceed with it, and our clerks on the intake are very good about explaining to them what evidence and information they need to present. So we do make sure that the pro se lawyer understands the process.
Yeah, but like, I'm just curious myself, you're very knowledgeable, you should have been a school teacher as well, you explain it very easily, which that's a compliment. Now I testify and say, this assessment's crazy. My kitchen is old, we just didn't have enough money to do all of the kitchen, the wallpaper's falling down. My wife wanted to do the bathroom all open, we got a leak, and it's just like, and then the assessment goes up. Are you kidding me? What, other than explaining, again, this people process how the condition of their house has deteriorated. And maybe they can say, yeah, the house across the street, and that's so much nicer than our house. Yeah, maybe it's 150 square feet less, but whoa, they got a nice kitchen, they did over their bathroom. They can't afford an expert. So what else would they give for testimony?
One of the key issues is what would a willing buyer and willing seller pay for this property? And they're able to come in, they can look around the community for comparable houses and look what they think are similar in the same kind of condition. Whether it was sold, they can come in with the sale price of that. That's evidence that we take into account.
But don't you think, I live in Jamaica Plain, that's where I actually live. Most houses are underassessed. Because there's no way, whether it's right, wrong, whatever, they're not 100% assessed, it's just, no way that they are. I have a lot of people in Jamaica Plain, if a house is assessed for X, if they're selling that house, they're gonna get one. They all. So when you say, well, we're willing to buy and to pay, but then you have
That's obviously an interesting point. That is the criteria, but the board will also consider comparable assessments. So people can come in and say, look, my neighbor has a house that looks just like my house. They have to provide evidence of what that house looks like, but that's something the board has the ability to consider.
And I'm constantly into my questions. Do you keep statistics? I'm talking residential properties, by the way, that people who come in without an attorney, surprisingly, 72% of those folks get abatements as compared to 52.5% of people who have a lawyer don't get the abatement.
I'm not aware that those statistics.
I made those up. I'm just wondering if you don't keep statistics.
I'm not aware that those are statistics that are.
You find out that if you have a lawyer, you have a better shot.
I would say that Taxpayers who come as a lawyer have the same opportunity as a taxpayer who comes in.
I know that, same opportunity.
It's the same considerations.
I understand that. But if I had a friend who said, geez, I'm going in for an abatement, lawyer's gonna charge me 9,000, what do you think? So she's like, talk to this nice lady and she makes it seem we got no disadvantage. Basically, why waste the money on a lawyer? Was the impression I got from this nice lady who came before us. But am I saying that right?
Every taxpayer has the opportunity, right, to make a decision as to whether they want a lawyer or they don't want a lawyer, but we as the board treat all the cases the same.
My last point, and I appreciate that, but it's like a criminal case. Someone's charged with operating under. They can present the same evidence as a skilled attorney like Clarence Kennedy, one of the most skilled attorneys in the Commonwealth. But they're not gonna have, there's not a chance in the world they can do the job they do. But I'm getting a question from you, when someone comes before the appellate tax court, what? I know this is me, I feel, I don't really need an attorney. Okay? I'm exaggerating. If they have half a brain, they can do just as well as an attorney. On the other hand, criminal cases, you need an attorney, but not necessarily, at least I took that to be in the case before the appellate tax board.
We treat every case the same. We consider every case equally, whether or not you have a lawyer. A lawyer presents evidence, the taxpayer presents evidence. We consider you.
No, I hope so. I would hope that every judge in the Commonwealth does that. I would assume they would, whether someone comes in for murder or whatever, they treat everyone the same with or without attorney. I assume that. I have no further questions. Your counsel was very supportive of you. She called me. So I just wanted you to know that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Eunice Ziegler.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Attorney Minister. So I appreciated the time that we spent getting to know each other and speaking about your work on the board. It was very clear to me that, Mr. DeFrancisco's assessment of the diligence that you bring to your work is accurate. You talked about how you use some of the common resources like LexisNexis that other lawyers use, but you like to go a step further and go to places like the social law library and dig into documents from the 1800s and look at the historical nature of particular laws with regard to tax. And I think that attention to detail and diligence like that is well served in this role, especially when you're engaging with individuals who this is their last stitch effort to try and reduce some of the economic burden that they have upon them relative to their assessment or whether to any other matter that the board oversees. I wanted to just bring to light, we talked about why you enjoy this work and what you feel is the most important aspect of serving on the board. To pose that question to you in public forum to give you an opportunity to share your answer.
What I find very rewarding is to deal with exactly the type of situation that Councilor Ainella pointed out, when you have homeowners to come in with a problem, that you can help them understand the issues and hear their cases and make a decision. These are very important issues for the homeowner. It may not seem like a lot of money, but it is a lot of money for the homeowner. The difference between his 900,000 example and the 1,000,001 home, that's a big tax increase, and that's very important to the homeowner. So dealing with these issues is very rewarding. And at the same time, there are intellectually challenging questions we get on issues that come from the Commissioner of Revenue, which is also very rewarding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have no further questions. I appreciate the time you took to meet with me and your diligence in answering questions.
Thank you. Counselor Terry Kennedy.
You know, I've been to Council Ionella's home in Jamaica Plain. It's really, really beautiful. And I'm shocked to find out that it might be under assessed. And we should discuss with the mayor, because there could be a lot of money in the coffers of the city of Boston.
All property in the city.
But I've been to your house, Chris. It's not very different than this. We spoke on the phone. I remember your hearing from last time. I think you're doing a terrific job. Like I said before we started, I don't want to admit I'm wrong by changing my mind, so I'm just voting for you again. And I'd like to ask you a lot of questions about taxes, but I'm only gonna look dumb. I'm gonna pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Paul DiPaolo.
Thank you, Counselor. I mean, you were the first woman partner at Mintz Levin and at Goulston Stores, is that correct? I'm just sitting here in awe of you, and I didn't need to hear the chair's remarks to sit through, you know, this hearing so far, to know your temperament and to imagine what you've dealt with in your career. And I'm very impressed that you continue to be committed to public service. I'm really grateful to have you on the board, just hearing what I've heard in the last 10 minutes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Tara Jacobs.
Thank you. Good morning. First up, your witness was incredibly powerful, meaningful words on your behalf that I very much take to heart. Kind of echo what's just been said, but looking at your resume is astounding, all that you've achieved. And so I would love to hear you articulate two things for me. One, that you were drawn to tax law in law school. I'm just curious about what it was about it that sparked for you. I'm not a lawyer. I'm becoming much more aware of the various streams that law school can take a person. And you may be the first that I've heard express that. And so I just love to understand the context in which that you were drawn to tax law. And I guess as a side to that, just you know, where you find the meaning in the work that you've been doing most recently for the Commonwealth.
Well, that's a very interesting question. How was I drawn to tax law? I went to law school because I wanted to be a foreign service officer. And it was quite clear in those days that women were not well promoted in the foreign service. So I decided I'd get a law degree and that would help me. And I started taking this tax course. My first tax course was some kind of individual course taught by a visiting professor, I believe from Texas. He was terrible. I mean, he was absolutely awful. And nevertheless, I liked the course. And then Bernie Wolfman, who subsequently became a professor at Harvard, was my corporate tax person. And I just fell in love with it. The intricacies of corporate tax were such fun. It was like a puzzle. I enjoyed that. I'm also very good at accounting. I took an accounting course in Wharton School. I took it with very strange, but I took it with, I think I was like a junior when I took it, because I was pre-law, and pre-law you took an accounting course, and I took this accounting course with my friend. She and I were both pre-law. And we both got A's, and everybody else in the course, the first year accounting boys were having a little difficulty accounting. So in any event, I think it was the combination of my love for numbers and my love for the intricacies of the tax law. Is very complicated. And I loved the little nuances, and that's what I continue to love about it.
I love that, and I love the way you described it as like solving a puzzle, because that makes sense to me. I can see how a certain kind of mind would be drawn to that kind of work. So looking back at your first term on the board, are there any things that come to mind that you would point to as things about which you are most proud, or that were most meaningful work for you?
I would say that we survived COVID. And that was very meaningful because surviving COVID has put in place procedures that are very good for the board going forward, like Zoom trials. We now have recorded hearings. It's been a very welcome change in the process that actually I think was driven by the COVID situation.
But it sounds like has increased access. It sounds like things that have increased access to
It's
justice across.
It's
Yeah.
better access for taxpayers because they can sit in the western part of the state and not drive to Boston and have to worry about parking. And that was a difficult for some tax. We did do some hearings out in the western part of the state periodically. But this has been I think, a very good change for taxpayers. We still hold in-person hearings for those who want them. So we have the option. But many of the homeowners like to have.
Coming from Western Mass, I appreciate that particularly. I also appreciate hearing that you have relocated at times.
I'd say most of our hearings are Zoom hearings now.
Wow, okay, that's a huge
I'd
shift.
say 90%, I can't, we have a few in-person hearings, but very few. Most of the in-person hearings tend to be the larger Department of Revenue cases.
Following up on some of Councilor Ionella's questions, which I thought were fascinating to listen to him ask and you respond to. You know, one of the, my understanding of what you guys do, and the questions that he was asking, I guess my area of interest is around the issue of gentrification, and the impact it can have on the existing communities, when tax assessments rise, property tax bills rise, income hasn't risen to meet what real estate is doing. And you know, some of his questions around or his hypothetical around, you know, whether or not a house has been improved, if you know the family doesn't have the finances to improve a house, and yet even still with the rising tide of real estate assessments, their house gets assessed higher and higher and their means don't match it, the impact that can have on a community. I'm just curious how much gentrification is an area that you on the board pay attention to, and what, if any, impact you can have in the decisions that you make.
Well, the issue of what properties are assessed for is not really a matter that the board has jurisdiction over. We do know what the assessments are, and if we think it's too high, we will issue a decision in favor of the taxpayer with an assessed value that we believe is appropriate. The assessors, you know, are bound by that for 3 years. And so if they want to increase the assessment, they have to come in, they have the burden of proof to show that this is really, next year it should be higher. But in terms of setting the process, we don't have any input, except to the extent that if the assessor understands that certain properties have been overassessed, they're aware of that, or at least in the view of the board. And of course, the assessors can appeal. If they decide that the decision in favor of the taxpayer is one that they disagree with, they can appeal.
To whom do they appeal?
They appeal to the appeals court,
To,
the Mass Appeals Court.
oh, okay.
That doesn't happen very often, but it sometimes happens.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And then I just want to follow up on one of the things you mentioned. You said the Commissioner of Revenue brings issues before the board that you find particularly interesting, and I'm just curious what kinds of issues we're talking about.
A variety of issues. You get employment tax issues, sales tax issues, tobacco excise tax issues, and corporate excise tax issues are the very complicated area.
What kind of decisions is the board making around those issues?
The board handles all of these.
In what way? They just specifics for me.
The Commissioner comes in and assesses a sales tax. The taxpayer says, no, you didn't, we didn't incur those sales taxes. Sometimes a lot of them are meal taxes. And there's a dispute then as to whether the system by which the taxpayer collects the revenue and reports the meals tax or the sales tax, whatever it is. And that dispute comes to the board. So that's that's very factual.
No, I,
As opposed to legal, but it tends to be more factual questions.
no, I appreciate that. Listen, I am fascinated by the work that you're doing. I'd love to understand it better, but I just want to say, you know, having listened to you today, having listened to your witness, having looked at this incredible resume of qualifications, I just feel very lucky that you have chosen to give your time and attention to serving the Commonwealth on this board. And so it's been a pleasure listening to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, Tanisha Civil.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And congratulations on.
Nice to see you in person.
Nice to see you in person as well. We had a great conversation over the phone. Thank you for that. My only question for you would be, what resources or support do homeowners in the community have received to understand the tax forward process, such as first-time home buyer, first-time home buyer owners, or even people who don't really speak English, or English is not their first language. What do you think, what kind of resources and support that has been set in place for them thus far?
We have a very detailed handbook for taxpayers and assessors on our website, which gives very detailed information on the appeal process, the standard by which the board looks at cases, and it's updated periodically, and we view that very important to keep that information current and up to date. And it is in English, but I do know that if you go on to Google and you click, it will translate into other languages. So there is the ability to get all of that information in a language that you speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have many questions. It was a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for coming out to Concord to meet with me. I loved hearing about your grandmother and the Quaker Day School in New Jersey. And I appreciated Councilor Ionella's questions about process, and just that we didn't go into that area of process in nearly as much detail, but you did talk about the number of folks who are pro se or representing themselves. Can you just tell us about that?
I would say, and I don't have the exact statistics, but I'd say at least 90% of our, at least real property tax cases are pro se.
That's very good to know.
I would venture to say that's probably a good estimate.
Excellent. And I just want to observe at the end, you know, there are two things I always look for. You made me realize there's a third very important quality, because you clearly have it. Obviously, judicial temperament. I think likability is important, because it can be the spoonful of sugar that makes things go down more easily. But last, you're admirable, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
To order. We are here this morning on behalf of Attorney William Powers, nominated to District Court. I am your resident counselor, Tara Jacobs. I'll be chairing this morning. I'm going to read into the record your nomination letter and then introduce my fellow counselors, and then we'll bring up your witnesses on your behalf. So dated July 23rd of this year, dear counselors, I am pleased to nominate William J. Powers to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council. I'm enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Maura T. Healy. So congratulations on your nomination. I'm going to introduce the council, and then I'll ask you to introduce who you've brought with you today. Starting going around from my right, we've got the Honorable Councillor Civil, Councillor Dolan, Councillor Iannella, Councillor Ziegler, Councillor Kennedy, and Councillor DiPaolo.
Morning.
Would you like to introduce who you brought today?
Love to. My wife Jessica, who's far right, daughter Madeline, daughter Eloise, who's my youngest, Harrison, who's my oldest. Mr. Battle is one of my witnesses. He's sitting to my son's left. And Congressman Richard Neal is in the far corner, along with my additional witness, and behind the door, Michael O. Jennings.
Lovely. We're going to start off actually hearing from the Honorable Congressman Richard Neal. You can sit, you can stand, whatever makes you most comfortable right here next to our nominee.
So I want to thank the members of the Governor's Council, as well as Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll for the moment that has brought us here today, and especially grateful to Councilor Jacobs for her stalwart advocacy for us in Western Massachusetts, and to the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor, whose constant presence in Western Massachusetts is important to all of us, as well as their advocacy. I have a reverence for institutions of American government, and an amateur historian am I, but have a longstanding interest in the Governor's Council as to how it was constructed and for the purpose as to why it was constructed. And in a representative democracy, it was to build in another check, which was a very important consideration. And one of the highlights of my relationship with the Governor's Council would date all the way back to my days as the Chief of Staff to Mayor Bill Sullivan in Springfield, which is a few decades ago. But I had a chance at that time when the Governor's Council came to Springfield for a hearing and a meeting. And they had all the official documentation that had established the council. And they did have a legendary member of the Governor's Council at that time, who seemed to have a penchant for being in the media with great regularity. His name was Patrick J. Sonny McDonough. So when I heard some of the names today, I came along with many of you over these years and have a great appreciation. It seemed as though Eddie O'Brien was the Governor's Council from Western Mass for much of my lifetime. And the people that have served subsequently have also been great advocates, again, for the people of Western Massachusetts, which is a pretty substantial geographic representation across the state. So I want to thank you today for this hearing. As I noted, my regard for the institutions of American life and for the representation that we have through democracy, which is being sorely challenged everywhere, met by moments like this. We have a chance to gather for the purpose of offering not just institutional memory, but affirmations as to the information that we will pass on to you about the proposed nominee. An independent, competent judiciary is one of the most important aspects of our democracy. I've long had an interest as well in the two terms fair and favorable, but in our judicial system, those two words are really important, largely because when people leave a courtroom, they might suggest that they were not treated fairly when they mean that they were not treated favorably. And that's the challenge that the judiciary has, but when they leave as well, to know the independence of the judiciary in an independent fashion had actually functioned. I have witnessed the nomination of countless judges, many I've known over these years, and I think that we are well served by the caliber of the individuals that you have passed judgment on for this period of time. They have a vast understanding of legal principles, but also great respect for the sanctity of the law. They understood the important role that our judicial system plays in our society. They knew the difference between the two terms, fair and favorable, as I've noted, and they believe that everyone, regardless of age, race, ethnicity, gender, religious beliefs, or socioeconomic status, should have the opportunity to be heard. And I'm especially grateful today that, based on the prompting of some of you, that Western Massachusetts, which is being challenged now with some of the vacancies, is impartial being met today. I also want to point out that the individual that is sitting and standing before you today, Bill Powers, he has worked with me for 20 years. That during that time, he has helped to navigate my office through some of the most tumultuous times in the nation's history. He was there during the Great Recession of 2008, working with the Small Business Administration to help small businesses stay afloat. He helped to renegotiate new mortgages for those impacted by the subprime mortgage crisis. He kept people in their homes. It was no small consideration. As well as during the COVID-19 pandemic, those families, businesses, community organizations had the resources and guidance that were necessary, become informed by the federal government's role to endure one of the most challenging periods that we've all witnessed. Time and again, I have relied on his sage counsel, measured judgment to ensure the communities I represent receive the support they needed in the times of difficulty. Judges are not born in robes. Temperament matters. And how to handle people who oftentimes could be at their worst. I've always said to staffers, that means you have to be at your best. I want to call attention to his work in immigration law. Through our offices, green card holders regularly would come in for one-on-one meetings. Patiently and diligently, Bill Powers worked with those families time and again, helped them navigate the complexities of our immigration system, which again, have become more complex every moment of every day. He reunited families, assisted with asylum and refugee applicants, and helped permanent residents become American citizens, all of whom had the opportunity to realize the American dream, thanks to his guidance. In addition to his work in my office, Bill has served our community through his work as a bar advocate. He has worked with indigent clients. He has upheld the tenets of due process and the right to a fair trial, providing zealous advocacy for everyone he represents, regardless of their financial standing. Outside of the courtroom and my office, he has dedicated his time and expertise to serving the community. He's worked with organizations like ROCA, the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, and as an advisory member of ROCA's earliest years in Springfield, which are literally across the street from the federal courthouse. He helped successfully translate and apply the organization's model to the Pioneer Valley, allowing high-risk young people to transform their lives and to disrupt the cycles of incarceration and poverty that they all too often need. With the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, he helped facilitate their expansion from the previous facility in Hatfield to their current location in Chicopee, Massachusetts. And as a result, they are now able to source, store, and provide over 17 million pounds of food each year. Million. At a time when our institutions again are under attack, including our justice system, we need individuals who will stand up for the rule of law and uphold it with unwavering integrity and an embrace of the facts. With his affable temperament, not always, but his earnest demeanor, I have no doubt that Bill is going to be a terrific steward of the trial court's mission, providing equal access to justice in a fair, efficient manner, but also one that maintains public trust. It's with great pride that I offer the highest recommendation of this appointment, the District Court of Bill Powers. He has served the American people in the United States House of Representatives with honor and dedication, and I have no doubt he will do the same on behalf of the people of this terrific Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy has a question.
Given that presentation, I can see how you keep getting reelected.
Given the presentation, you can see how you keep getting.
All my hearing aids, Congressman. Thank you. Your testimony was very cute.
Councilor Ina.
No question, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Way back with your family.
Yeah, yeah.
It's you, me, and Peter Lucas that remember them.
You know, you mentioned Eddie O'Brien. I served with Eddie for many years. He was a good guy. And he did a great job on the council, so good to see you again.
Supported him, as you know, when he ran for Attorney General.
Gonna get a lot of that. How was my memory? George Sacco?
Sacco was from Medford.
Yeah, I think
He called it Medford.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew them all.
Am I right? See, I'm going way back. Harrington, didn't Harrington run in that race too?
Yeah, Ted Harrington ran
Yeah.
that race, yeah. It was Eddie O'Brien.
That's pretty good. That was a long time ago.
But you can abide one moment of great humor. George Sacco, who began as a city councilor, I think, in Medford. There was a state rep here, and so he asked me for a ride. I said, look, I'm for Eddie O'Brien. I said, that's all there is to it. I said, he's the guy up the street in East Hampton. So Sacco said, no, I appreciate that. Can you give me a ride over to the West Springfield Town Hall? I said, sure. So it's to show you what Massachusetts politics could be like. He said, as he was getting out of the car, he goes, look, he said, Eddie won't know if you vote for me.
This is too entertaining.
Believe me, some great moments of humor all the way back to Governor Dukakis. I remember.
My big guy in Medford was Johnny Sam.
Yes.
He was my guy.
I remember Patrick McDonough, the controversy with him at the time, and he was a legend.
Yeah.
You know, he run for mayor, and that's where he changed his name to Sonny, because Governor Curley, Mayor Curley at the time, he went out and found 6 people named Patrick J. McDonough, put them all on the ballot.
That's hilarious.
Court to have his name changed to Sonny.
Before I let you go, Councilor DiPaolo also is.
Thank you, Councilor. Congressman, I don't go back far enough to have any names to share with you. I do have the honor of overlapping in several communities that we represent, from Munson into the Quabbin and the Blackstone, itching into the Blackstone Valley. And I just want to say, as a Central Mass person, I have affinity for Western Mass. And since I've been on, Councilor Jacobs and before her, Councilor Hurley, I've been in that chair quite a bit. They fight really hard for the region. So, and I appreciate, of course, the work that you're doing on behalf of our constituents as well. So thank you very much for being here today.
So I've represented geographically more than 1/3 of the state during my many years in the
Right.
House. And very proud of the Blackstone Valley Historic Corridor and the Shetucket Corridor. Both I help with authorship of.
Well, we appreciate that. And I know that you're appreciated in those areas as well.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much, Congressman. Super appreciate you being here today and all that you shared, and it really resonated with me and I'm sure the council. Next, I'd like to call up Attorney Michael Jennings to join us.
Tough act to follow.
I know, right? It's almost unfair.
Gonna take the seat.
You should have went first.
I'm most used to standing up when I talk to groups of people in courtrooms, but ever more often now, accepting the opportunity to sit down. I wrote a letter to the council. I hope you all got a copy of it and were able to read it. Mr. Powers told me when he asked me to come down here to be brief, 2 minutes. And I said, well, I'll just basically cough up a lot of what I said in the letter, because I think it says most of what I want you to hear. But sometimes it's better to hear it with the spoken word than to read it with the written word. I first met, I've been practicing for over 50 years in Springfield, primarily criminal defense work. I'm pretty much done by choice. I had an opportunity to see Mr. Powers in his earliest days when he first showed himself in our area as a prosecutor in Palmer District Court. And he immediately I had known his father. He had immediately struck me as someone who, for his experience and the number of years he had been calling himself a lawyer, had a great deal of comfort and composure in the courtroom. He felt very comfortable there, like he belonged there, and that he liked to be there. And he quickly established himself as a highly competent, thoughtful, well-prepared, well-respected, and well-liked prosecutor. I tried several cases against him. He was always prepared, displayed a natural presence in the courtroom. Beyond his years of experience, again, and knowledgeably handled evidentiary issues skillfully and effectively. He learned there, and he learned later in when he was working on the other side of the courtroom as a criminal defense lawyer in his private practice. He learned about constitutional issues in the law that are so important, as Congressman Neal just mentioned. He knows about motions to suppress. He knows about motions to dismiss. He knows about what probable cause means. He knows what the burden beyond a reasonable doubt means. He knows the elements of the crimes. And very importantly, he knows about human nature, as it often shows itself, its good side and its bad side, in the courtrooms of the Commonwealth. In 2004, when he left that position, I think I got the year right.
You did.
He hung out a shingle and took an office in a building I was associated with other lawyers in, and he immediately fit in. Everybody liked him. He was easy to get along with. I can't tell you how many times he walked into the office, sat down, asked me some questions about an issue that was on his plate. And always there was time for humor and time for gossip. But everyone in the building enjoyed his company and respected him. There were some things that I said in the letter. I'm just going to repeat here because they're the qualities about him, some of which the Congressman mentioned that are really apparent to all of us who've spent any time with him. A wonderful sense of humor. That goes a long way in this business. It's something that we should all try and foster as we're doing our craft, practicing our craft in what can be a very sharp and ugly world sometimes. The sense of humor takes us a ways. He brings a great deal of enthusiasm and energy to his work. He's loyal. He's respectful. He has empathy. He's collegial. He always strives to excel in the work he is doing. He always shows concern for others. He has developed a very accomplished sense of duty to the community, as the Congressman mentioned. He listens, very important. And I have no doubt that his demeanor and performance as a judge would reflect all those qualities. And I can state with full confidence, based on the many years of knowing and observing him, that self-importance, ill temper, which none of us lawyers like when we're in the court, are not present in Williams' personality. And I'm fully confident reporting to the council from the many conversations I've had since this nomination became public, that it's widely supported by informed people in the community, including the community of the Western Massachusetts legal community. I think this is a good nomination, a very good nomination. I think it's well worthy of the council's confirmation, and I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for this? No. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. Next, I'd like to call up Charles Battles. Charles.
Morning, everyone.
Okay.
I have a few words here I would like to share with you. I want to thank the Governor's Council for convening this very important hearing. My name is Chuck Battle, and I reside in Springfield. I'm a veteran, a member of the Massachusetts Democratic State Committee, and chair of the Veterans and Military Families Outreach Subcommittee. I was appointed by Governor Healy to serve on the Governor's Advisory Council for Veteran Services, and for the past 9 years, I've been a mentor for the Veterans Treatment Court in Holyoke. I met Attorney Powers through Congressman Neal's office and had the pleasure of getting to know him over the past 10 years. Having represented clients across the socioeconomic spectrum, I believe is exceptionally qualified for the role of district court judge. Bill brings years of distinguished legal experience, a deep commitment to justice, and an unwavering dedication to fairness and integrity. His proven expertise and ethical leadership make him the ideal candidate for this honorable position. As an advocate or bar advocate, Bill has effectively advocated for countless clients, regardless of their socioeconomic status. This includes veterans, many of whom have struggled with mental health, PTSD, and other abuses. All they asked for was a fair shake. Attorney Powers gave them that opportunity. As legal counsel for Congressman Neal's office, Bill has worked with constituents who, in many cases, have exhausted every other resource and are desperate for help. Whether it be family looking for help with immigration, small businesses in need of financial assistance, and stakeholders requiring intervention with government programs. The skills he demonstrated through his work in constituent advocacy and dispute resolution will serve him well on the bench. It is a privilege to stand before you today and offer my highest recommendation for the appointment of Attorney William Powers as District Court Judge. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Oh,
One comment.
Mr. Dolan.
It's just that it's very good to see you, and thank you for coming. Appreciate it. You have to say.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So with that, is anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I turn it now to you to share your personal statement with the council.
Thank you, Councilor Jacobs. Thank you to the council. I'd like to thank Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for my nomination today. I'd also like to thank the staff of the governor's legal office, Jesse Boudou, Kesselheim, Kimberly Baptiste, for all of their efforts in attending to my application. They are large applications, and I appreciate all of the work you have done to assist me. I wish also to thank governor's counselors for their time and care in reviewing the application. Express my appreciation to Sonia Altamarino and her staff for all their work in helping me through this process. Additionally, I need to acknowledge my wife, Jessica, who's here, my son, Harrison, daughters, Madeline and Eloise. The oldest children traveled from college to be here this afternoon. My son, Harry, is a senior at the University of Maine, studying environmental science. He drove a long way to be here, and I appreciate you, Harry. Madeline, my older daughter, is a junior at the University of Vermont. She aspires to be a medical provider in patient care. My youngest daughter, Eloise, who's seated right in the middle, is an aspiring chicken farmer. She's raising chickens, and she provides eggs to our family, which I greatly appreciate. Those chickens produce only organic eggs. He has supervisory help from our two golden retrievers, Hannah and Hazel. I'm so proud of all of you. To my wife, Jess, who's beginning her 20th year of teaching at the Springfield Public Schools next week. Thank you for supporting me through this process. Your sacrifice and work for our family makes us all able to achieve our successes, my dear. I would be neglectful if I also did not mention my dear friend, the late Judge William J. Boyle, who always took a keen interest in my career, as well as my former boss, DA William Bennett, who hired me back in 1998 for my first job as a prosecutor. His generous offer of employment ignited my interest in trial work. I was a latchkey kid who grew up on the South Shore, Bridgewater. I'm very proud of my upbringing. My mother ran a program at the YMCA for after-school kids. She'd been laid off from the public schools as a fourth grade teacher because of Proposition 2.5. So she was our sole income provider, and she was artistic, she was creative. She did a lot with a little, and we were a great team. My grandmother, who is 102 next month, and is a retired police officer from Needham and a former Marine, is watching this hearing from the Cape. She generously supported my decision to attend law school. She was not shy about sharing her experience. Well, she wasn't shy about anything. She was a Marine, but she wasn't shy about sharing her experiences after missing out on her higher ed opportunities that she aspired in the early 1940s. Finishing school or secretary of school was not for her. So she became originally a Boston police officer, and then she moved to Needham, and she was a Needham cop. And I loved her, love her dearly. I've learned so much from her tenacity. I additionally received regular sage advice from my father, who early on encouraged my legal path. He regularly shares with me his perspective from his 30+ years with the Department of Justice. I do cherish this time I have with him. As a lawyer, my work with the Office of Congressman Neal and as bar advocate has offered me so many opportunities to live out and advance the values that I grew up with. Helping those who are less able to help themselves, advocating for those in need, promoting equity and fairness in government. My work with Congressman Neal in particular has given me the chance to do that day in and day out. I so enjoy helping constituents that need assistance. It gives me great satisfaction and pleasure. I thank Congressman Neal for giving me the great latitude to assist our diverse constituency, making the lives of members of our community, which he represents, better. It's an idealistic goal, but it's a goal that I shared with him and attempted to continually promote. Our shared experiences changed the way I approach community-related issues, and it made me a more effective advocate. I wish to acknowledge the contribution of my former colleagues as well to my nomination. Without their skill and expertise, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be part of the community that shaped so many of us. Without their successes, it would have been impossible for the successes of others, including the candidate that sits right in this chair before you today. It'd be an honor to join many of my former colleagues on the bench. More so than any time in our lifetime, this has become a pivotal role in the preservation of justice and democratic norms. The court. Working with others who share this common goal will be in many ways a continuation of my prior working experiences, albeit with a much different mission. It would be an honor and a privilege to work with some of the most dedicated and talented individuals at all levels of our court system. I'm truly humbled by the opportunity to appear here today as a nominee for the district court, and I would be very happy to answer any questions of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start with Counselor Civil.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Counselor.
And it was wonderful to have a conversation with you about your experience. I know that you were a former prosecutor, and prosecutors may be known to be very victim-driven. However, if given an opportunity to become a judge, when we hear the term hurt people, what personal experience have you obtained throughout your years of being an attorney as well as working as a prosecutor that you will take to the bench to make sure that everyone is being treated fairly and is being heard, and also making sure that victims get the justice that they need? and making sure that the defendants get the resources and access to be better contributing members into society with the decisions that you make.
Thank you for that question. I think we spoke a little bit about those issues that you raised.
I'm sorry I made you cry, but
No, no, you didn't do that. I would say to you that, you know a bit about my background.
yes.
And I think I shared with you that some of the most difficult cases for me personally were child victim cases. And you had to really, for those types of cases, not only pay greater attention, but really give a little bit of yourself for those cases. And I think my wife would probably attest to the fact that there were times that she didn't care to be with me when I was prosecuting those cases. But what I would say to you is, in kind of a direct answer to your question, is that I think my experience in prosecuting those types of cases and seeing how victims come into the court system and how they're treated and how they need to be treated in order to access justice and for due process to occur and for there to be fairness, would be a pivotal part of my role as a jurist. And there are all kinds of ways to do that. It's being open and amenable to allowing them to access everything that they need. And if you see they're not getting something, you do something about it. But it's being active and open and paying attention to the needs of victims. The same with, I think you mentioned defendants. It's the same answer for a defendant. Access is access. Fairness is fairness. A court should be open to the community. The community should feel comfortable. They should feel like they're getting a fair shake, whether they're a victim or a defendant. And I think having a jurist that presents themselves as open-minded is very important.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being vulnerable at the time of our conversation. Thank you for your transparency. I think it's important for us to realize that when we're serving in the public, we really need to keep in mind the experiences that we have so that once we do get cases, that will bring us back to a sense of understanding on how we can do right by the victims, but as well as making sure that the offender does not reoffend based on the sentence that we give them by providing the resources that they need. So thank you. No more further questions.
Thank you, Councilor Dolly.
Thank you. It's good to see you. I appreciate our conversation. Of course, Congressman Neal's thoughtful and heartfelt recommendation is really all I think any of us need. But I want you to know I also heard from former Governor's Counselor Mary Hurley, who wanted to make sure that I knew she was available to answer any questions. I assured her I'd spoken with you, was very impressed, and I was expecting to vote for you. Wonderful to have my state committee pal, Chuck Battle, here to talk for you, and great to hear from Michael Jennings as well. I don't have a lot of questions for you. I very much appreciate the fact that you've been a bar advocate. As a bar advocate myself, I appreciate the service, and I believe it is one of the best educations a person can get in our courts, in human behavior, in society, in compassion and fairness. And the fact that you bring that and will bring that to the position is incredibly important. I'm also very grateful for your experience working in the legislative branch, because our brilliant system of government depends upon the citizenry understanding how it works. And so I believe that as a judge, you'll not only help the people who appear before you, but you'll also help your colleagues and help us all gain understanding as to how our system of government works and can work, which I think you understand what that means. I do want to ask you, because we had a really terrific conversation about what I think is one of the most important issues happening right now, which is ICE and the conduct of ICE.
Sure.
And we talked about ICE being in our courts. In my opinion, a terrible violation. They have no business there. They're disruptive. They interfere with justice. And you said very plainly that if ICE were to interfere in a court where you were presiding, you would adjourn. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Well,
Because I think that's the right response.
I think you had indicated whether or not I would allow a litigant or parties in a courtroom to videotape ICE and or their interaction with a party they were interested in. And that's kind of a twofold question, because you've got the presence of ICE in the courtroom, which in and of itself could potentially make folks that are trying to access our state courts feel a bit uncomfortable. And I think I took it a step further and I said, if I found that their presence was being disruptive, I may adjourn the session because it would interfere with the dispensing justice in that moment, or due process or fairness. We're in an uncertain time, and my focus, if I'm on the bench, is about fairness and due process. Without giving any specific commentary on their presence, I would have to say that my role is really preserving fairness. And if I felt that fairness was not being administered, I would take action in that way. Understanding the trial court has, I think, promulgated a don't hinder, don't help memo or regulation. I think this trumps that. I think that type of situation would override any help or hinder memo.
I think that's the right answer. I agree with you. And I think that adjourning neither hinders nor helps. So I think it's perfect. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Councilor Arnaud.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak with you. We had a lengthy conversation. I love your witnesses today. Great to see Congressman Neal. He's doing a fantastic job. My only question, this issue about ICE has come up before, and I have done my research, but my research could be wrong. My understanding is ICE has not been in the courts of the Commonwealth. They've been outside in the lobby, in the waiting room, but actually in the courtroom. I could be wrong. I don't know of any instance, and I have talked to people who know a lot more than I do. Do you have any personal knowledge that ICE was in the courtrooms in Massachusetts?
I don't. I don't. I think the counselor was giving me a hypothetical on what I would do if they were physically. But I'm not aware that they've been physically in courtrooms. I understand they've been in lobbies, waiting on the front steps.
Well, that's my understanding.
My hope would be is that they respect the sanctity of our court.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Councilor Mary Hurley, someone I have a great deal of respect, called me, texted me to remind me this morning at like 6:30 in the morning. She gets up early. Big fan of yours, and when your name comes before the council next week, I'll be more than happy to support you.
Thank you.
Councilor Ziegler.
Thank you.
My eyes just kept going.
I'm about processing to make sure they have the floor to proceed. Attorney, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on your nomination as well. We also had a great conversation prior to today's hearing, and I appreciated your take on the importance of this role that you have put yourself forward for, your candidacy forward. I also appreciated your view of how you could impact the bench. We talked about various matters relative to access, whether it be access relative to language access, physical access to the courts, access to resources. Can you speak to how you would ensure that individuals who come before you would have access to the necessary resources?
I think we talked about a little bit, Counselor, language barriers and language access specifically. I think that's the way you started our conversation. And you asked what I would do if I felt that a litigant wasn't receiving the type of attention that they were deserved. And I think that requires really paying attention to the interaction between counsel and the defendant in this case. And if a jurist sees that, something's amiss. They may not have met at all, maybe the court interpreters the first time that they're there. What I would say is, you've got to be able to step in a respectful way and make sure that you're comfortable with what's occurring before you, and make sure that that party, that litigant, that defendant is able to communicate with counsel in a meaningful and impactful way. And that just really kind of buttresses the argument of due process and fairness. So it's paying attention to things like that. So I would be actively looking for that and actively trying to make sure that individuals feel they're being heard, especially those that where English is not their first language. And I think that's especially important now. We are a community of multiple languages, and I embrace that notion and think that you've got to give access to everything, and so that everybody believes it's a fair and open process. You're welcome.
So you're before us with such a great background. Your background is rooted in constituent services, dealing directly with individuals who may be coming to you as their last resort because they're frustrated with a particular issue that's affecting them and their families. And as a judge, that would be ever more so the case. So I feel you bring in a unique perspective. But we know what we don't know, right? And I say that to say, from the bench, it will be a completely different role, a completely different perspective that you would be taking relative to cases. How would you approach professional development to get yourself up to speed for areas of the law you may not regularly have dealt with?
I agree. We don't know what we don't know. Right. I would access every resource the trial court gave me. And most likely try to kind of umbrella outside of that, as long as it's in trial court guidelines, and educate myself on issues of mental health, substance abuse, to the extent I can, to the extent I have been doing through my 20+ years in the congressional office. I haven't been just doing tax and Social Security. The folks that we see, in addition to having socioeconomic issues, many times have mental health and drug dependency issues. So you've got to be kind of aware of what services are available for them in the community. And I'd make sure that I was very well aware of those services, and so folks that were before me would have access to those.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy.
Spain.
Just how was Spain?
It was very nice.
Spain was fantastic.
Did you take my advice to relax and enjoy it?
Well, that's really nice.
He calls me from Spain, all nervous. They just got nominated. He's there for your 25th wedding anniversary.
It's our 25th.
Yeah. What did I do to you?
Well, we just had a chat. You told me to relax.
I put your wife
talked to my
wife, right? Yeah. And I told her to tell you to relax, right? And enjoy it. Well, happy anniversary too. It must have been a little nerve-wracking getting nominated while you were there, huh?
I got nominated when we were flying out of JFK. So that was, an interesting flight.
Well, I told you I was supposed to be in Spain, but I had to postpone it.
Get there.
Huh?
You like it.
Eventually. That was for my 40th wedding anniversary. I was supposed to be there. A little longer than you. But anyway, we are talking on the phone, and I appreciated the comments you made. Definitely, no question in my mind, you qualify. And I will say this about the ICE issue. I do see them come into the courtrooms. I don't see them take any action inside the courtrooms. They may be sitting there watching what's going on and step outside at the end of it. The ICE thing, they have a job to do, and I think everybody knows that ICE has an important job to do. It's not that they do their job lately, it's how they're doing it. I think that
I completely agree with you.
that creates the issue. And I know that you have had a lot of experience dealing with some of those situations leading to your material, both working for the congressman and peers who go in private practice, done some immigration work. It's a difficult situation we're in right now, mostly because of the lack of respect for due process that we're seeing. You're gonna have to deal with some of that in the courtroom. Some of both in terms of cases that come before you, we look at people, and at least in the back of your mind, your background, you're gonna say, boy, this is gonna cause them a problem. I think you'll be able to figure all that out. Mary Hurley called me too. My good friend Mary Hurley. One of the best things that's happened to me being on this council is I became good friends with Mary Hurley. See somebody I have a lot of respect for, and, you know, somebody I'm definitely afraid of, like many people. And she had a lot of good things to say about you, and her recommendation alone, I great witness you have. Won't be enough for me to vote for you, so
Thank you.
I'm good. I told you on the phone in Spain I'd vote for you, so appreciate that. I haven't changed my mind yet.
Councilor Powell.
Thank you, Counselor. Good morning. I hope you'll forgive me for not interrupting your anniversary trip in Spain. Hope you're okay with that. You had a public hearing held in the 413 where a lot of people came and showed support that I know Councilor Jacobs hosted, and I know she holds those hearings quite regularly. I've had the privilege of attending a couple, and as you've already heard, Councilor Hurley, of course, reached out as well. So you have a lot of good support in your background. I spoke with folks in Congressman McGovern's office who'd interacted with you. They had entirely positive things, entirely positive feedback for me. I'm very concerned with how adverse childhood experiences impact someone's life trajectory. And a lot of times, children who've dealt with trauma, abuse, victims of violence, you've worked with folks who've been, victims, childhood victims, how that sometimes puts them on a trajectory where unfortunately they appear in the district court. You're on the advisory board of ROCA. I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions, but could you just tell us, for anyone who doesn't know, what ROCA is?
Well, when ROCA first came to Western Massachusetts, they were kind of they were a little bit out of their depth. I mean, they came in and were chatting with probation in the trial court about doing some alternative programming with respect to keeping young, at the time, males out of the court system. And it was a incentivized approach where the Commonwealth and the trial court entered into a contract with them. They did alternative programming. If they were successful with the alternative programming, it kept them out of the Department of Probation. They've been wildly successful. Goldman Sachs gave them money. I mean, if Goldman Sachs is giving somebody money for programming, they're making money. And they are keeping really some troubled young men out of the court system through direct intervention, job training, job placement. It's a community-based approach. And so actually the sheriff at the time, Sheriff Ash, asked me if I would be on the advisory committee to get them going. And they're very well going now. And it was a controversial way for us out in Western Mass to deal with some offenders, and they have completely proven themselves. And I'm glad to say I was involved with them at the beginning. They've done really well, and it really helps the trial court probation with an alternative method, which is better than traditional probationary terms, right? Because you're getting education, job training, you're keeping your record clean. It's the trifecta of the way maybe modeled or men who have significant socioeconomic challenges. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's an outstanding program. I think it's an outstanding perspective for any incoming judge to have. So, for all those reasons, I look forward to supporting you. I have no further questions, Counselor.
Thank you. I'll just say a couple of things before we wrap up, but I want to start, but thank you again to Congressman Neal for being here today and also for the letter that you submitted. It is joined by many letters of support that we received on your behalf. One I'm going to call attention to really just because coming out of the questions about Roca, Judge Malpe wrote on your behalf and attended your hearing on Monday. And in partnership with Roca, the Emerging Adult Court of Hope in Springfield, that has been a phenomenal trailblazer in creating a space for justice for what we know from brain science, cognitively developing young men who are able to avail themselves of enormous, powerful resources and tools, and with partnership with the DA, Roca, and the courts, able to divert into a successful future trajectory from a struggling current situation. And so I just want to highlight that because I appreciate the role that clearly you've had in that, but also the impact it's had on our communities in Western Mass. I also want to highlight some of what we heard on Monday, again and again from people, but I think is so important. It was commented repeatedly on your behalf that you would be ready to sit the bench immediately from day one. And I think given the need we have in Western Mass and our district courts to fill those seats, having someone be able to step in from day one is a really important facet. So I just wanted to highlight that. I won't ask any questions today. We've talked at length and had a lot of opportunity to engage, and we're super close to our noon assembly. So I think in the interest of moving our day along, I'll just say thank you very much. Congratulations on your nomination. We'll adjourn.
Paulo for kicking us off, leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Happy birthday, isn't it?
Prayer, it's, but not before the Pledge of Allegiance, for sure.
All right, Paul.
Happy birthday, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
I do want to offer a moment of reflection on this latest heat wave we've been experiencing. I know in my hometown and across the Commonwealth, it feels like driving around, we're reminded of the struggles that people face, and that we continue to do the work of keeping those who are disadvantaged at the top of our minds as we engage in the work of government. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation
Under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I appreciated that prayer because my air conditioner broke 2 days ago.
Oh, no, bad timing.
Sorry to hear that.
Moment of silence.
Today.
I'd like to recognize Counselor Ianella for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant. Motion's been made, seconded by Counselor Ziegler. All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Counselor Dolan for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace. So moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Counselor Civil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Counselor Jacobs for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Thomas H. Townsend to the position of Associate Justice of the Superior Court.
I very happily make that motion.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? Seconded by Counselor Ziegler. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I would ask Sonia to please call the roll.
Counselor Jacobs,
Aye.
Counselor Ferrera, Counselor Civil,
Aye.
Counselor Dolan. Aye. Counselor Ianella,
Yes.
Counselor Ziegler,
Aye.
Counselor Kennedy,
I'm with Ianella, yes.
Counselor DePaulo.
Yes, aye.
Okay, 7 members voting, 7 in the affirmative, the matter carries. I don't think we have any other business. You guys had what sounded like a terrific hearing earlier, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Counselor DePaulo, seconded by Counselor Dolan. All those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. You stand.